NFL Talk with Elite Wages.
Yo. Welcome back, everyone. This is another episode of NFL Talk with Elite Wages. Vibes are high this week. Good week last week. NFL Week 6. We went 7-3 for plus 2.72 units. So we're eating into that deficit of the loss that we had from a few weeks ago. But yeah, vibes are high. Very much looking forward to NFL Week 7. I've pinpointed some lines that I like, some props, things like that. And obviously we hit a lot of player props last week, so I'm going to look into those again. So let's start this episode and go into my NFL Week 6 recap.
Weekly NFL recap.
So yeah, like I said, I hit a lot of player props last week, and last week's Thursday night football game was the Seahawks. I had Tyler Lockett. I was on his receiving yard line, and I had him for over 43.5, which hit, and I also had him for 49.5, which also hit. So Thursday night, overall, a success, 2-0. Initially thought this would be a little bit of a sweat, considering Lockett didn't have a single yard at halftime. Eventually, the game script worked out, sort of went the way that I expected it to. As I said in last week's episode, this bet cashed almost instantly into the second half. Ended the game with a team high 65 yards, so cash both of these plays fairly easily. Obviously, a 2-0 start on Thursday Night Football, and then we went straight into another player prop, which was Bateman over 31.5 yards receiving yards, which also hit. So second player prop of the week, well, second or third, whichever one you want to count. Tyler Lockett will count him as one, so that's the second player of the week, and it was another easy win. He caught all 4 of his passes from Jackson for 71 total yards, and he actually had this bet cashed early in the second quarter. He had back-to-back receptions for 35 yards. He added another 36 just to make sure, and obviously the Ravens took the win in that game, so very happy about that one. I did have a London, it was NFL London again last week, so I had a London play, and that was Swift over 17.5 receiving yards. I got that line fairly low, posted it in the Discord last week. Another NFL London game, obviously didn't disappoint. It was a 51 total point game, a 35-16 victory for the Bears. Comfortable victory for the Bears. Caleb Williams, he threw 4 touchdown passes, 226 yards, and 28 of those going to Swift. So obviously this bet cashed as well by 10 yards. It was a little bit closer than I'd liked. I was actually considering taking the over 25 receiving yard line for Swift as well, but decided against it. Stuck with a 17.5. Cashed that one. It was fairly easy, fairly simple. Another player prop that essentially went exactly how I predicted from last week's episode. Now the next one was in the Packers and Cardinals games. Obviously I'm a Packers fan. I tried to be as unbiased as possible, and in this one I went for Kyler Murray under 31.5 pass attempts, and I went for Jaden Reed over 5.5 rushing yards. So these two wagers, they actually had a really good chance of hitting all throughout this game. The Packers were rolling, the Cardinals were struggling. Obviously it's the opposite of where we wanted it to be, really. We wanted the Cardinals to be doing quite well so Murray wouldn't throw as much. Eventually, the Packers won 13-34, and being down big obviously meant Murray had to throw the ball to try and get back into the game. Now, as I mentioned in last week's episode, despite being down a lot this season, Murray still hasn't thrown as much as maybe as he should have in losses, and he's obviously trailed quite a lot during the season, but this bet lost. He actually threw for 32 pass attempts, so we lost this by half a pass attempt. And as for Jaden Reed, I added this a little bit later, so I didn't have a breakdown for this in last week's episode, but I did add this on as the week progressed. Especially like this bet as I look more and more into the Packers throughout the week, I like this one more and more. So the Packers have been consistently giving him a rush attempt in each game. So I think he's had at least one in each game, and he's had multiple in a few games as well. And obviously this wasn't any different. He had a rushing attempt on this game, but he got stuffed at the line, and if he would have broken that tackle, he would have ran for 20, maybe 30 yards. So there was no bueno on these two. Another one that we lost on was Joe Burrow over 1.5 passing touchdowns, and this was a really, really underwhelming game. I actually struggled to sleep during the day on this Sunday game, and I actually watched this game hoping that it would make me fall asleep. It was that bad. So it was just really boring. First drive touchdown for the Bengals, and then nothing until the final few minutes. Neither offense played well. Both defenses did their jobs and kept the other team in check. I'm not sure if it was a really good defensive battle or if it was just a really poor offensive showing from both teams. Either way, Joe Burrow couldn't manage to get the ball near the end zone, so that one was a disappointing loss. But we ride on to the next one, and the next one was the Bucks minus 1.5. And obviously I mentioned last week's episode, if you're not in the Discord, you need to get in the Discord, and this is essentially why I managed to get really, really good line movement on this bet as the week progressed. I picked it up, I posted it for minus 1.5 on Discord, and I think just before game time it moved to minus 4 to the Bucks, so we had a good 2.5 point deficit there. And obviously that was with the news of Derek Carr being out with injury. This game turned out to be a back and forth for the first half. The Bucks led 17-0 in the first quarter. The Saints scored 27 points in the second quarter, and then obviously second half the Bucks turned it on. They scored 27 themselves unanswered in the second half, and they won by 24 points. So minus 1.5, minus 4 didn't really matter in the end. Keep the points, easy winner. But still, you need to get in that Discord. You need to get these line movements before they move. The next one was my first moneyline parlay of the year and my first 2-unit bet of the year. Yet again, another wager going exactly how I predicted. The Texans manhandled the Patriots. They scored 5 touchdowns on their way to winning by 20 points. Patriots never really stood a chance. As for the Eagles, they didn't make it as sweat-free as the Texans. They allowed a really bad Browns team to hang around, just about won by 4 points, as both Smith and Brown found the end zone on their returns from injury. The Eagles really missed those two guys, but eventually they cashed this leg of the moneyline parlay. So the Texans and the Eagles moneyline parlay cashed. And then the final play of the week was Monday Night Football. And obviously, it's a nice feeling to start the week with a win, and it's an even better feeling to finish the week with a win as well. So, Bills moneyline cashed. This game was another nice prediction, if I do say so myself. Had the prediction and the breakdown pretty much on point. Pretty nitty gritty game. A battle between two teams ending. It ended with a field goal for the Bills with under 4 minutes to play. Aaron Rodgers actually had a really good game. He had a disappointing game against. I can't remember who it was now, in London a few weeks ago. The Vikings, of course. But he sort of put that to bed, and he played a really nice game, threw just under 300 passing yards, 2 touchdowns. But it was Josh Allen who actually had the higher rated game. He had the higher quarterback rating in this game. The Bills' run game was without James Cook. He was injured, so he was out, but they still did a very, very solid job. They rushed for nearly 150 yards on the day. Overall, solid hard-fought win from the Bills. So again, cash that. I'll quickly go through my fantasy sections as well. They're a little bit underwhelming this week. Game scripts didn't really go as well as I predicted, but still managed to get some nice points. So my captain slot was Alvin Kamara. He had a solid outing, difficult game. The Bucks were always going to try and take him out of the game as much as possible. That was their game plan to get them to win. Kamara wasn't used as much as I predicted, as simple as that. He still managed to get a touchdown, which helped us total. Overall, he had 17.4. Obviously, double that as your captain. 34.8, so not entirely bad. Could have been better, but I'll happily take 34.8. And then obviously my value pick was Bateman, and obviously I piggybacked off of that due to me taking the receiving yard prop last week. So Bateman, he was a good value pick. He had definitely had a better game than I expected. No touchdown this week, but his usage and his production was way up. So he ended the game with 4 receptions and 71 yards, which total 11.1 total points. So we've had just over 45 points there, 45.9 points between the two. So not bad. Could have been worse, but we'll take it. So yeah, a full recap. We obviously cashed Tyler Lockett, we cashed Bateman, cashed Swift, cashed the Bucks, Texans, Eagles, money line parlay, cashed the Bills, lost on Murray, lost on Reed, lost on Joe Burrow. Overall 7-3 for plus 2.72 units. So very happy heading into this week. And obviously I am going to go into my Thursday night football pick now.
Thursday night football.
So I'm going to start off NFL Week 7 with Thursday Night Football yet again, as I do every week. This game is between the New Orleans Saints and the Denver Broncos. So for this week's Thursday Night Football matchup, we don't necessarily have any of these so-called big hitters playing, but we do have a potential intriguing matchup. I'm actually surprisingly looking forward to watching this game. Obviously, the Saints and the Denver Broncos aren't two teams that I would normally be excited to watch. But when I started looking into this game, the first thing I noticed was a low game total. And when I see a low game total, I tend to look at that straight away. I want to predict why it's that low. So I looked into this game because of that. It's been set at 36.5. I think it's about 37 now, so it's around that mark. In my opinion, it seems like a really low number considering both teams have the ability to score points. Both teams have sailed over this number fairly regularly as well throughout the season, so it didn't sort of make sense to me initially why it was 36.5. The New Orleans Saints obviously had a tremendous start to the year, back-to-back 40-plus scoring games. I think they had 91 points for the first two games. They won both. Since then, they've suffered 4 straight losses in a row, but they have still been able to put up some points, and they averaged 26 points per game in their last 3 and 27 on the season. So despite having those 91 points in the first 2 games, they're still averaging just 1 point less. So it's not really inflated or deflated due to that. It's sort of on point at 26 points per game. During their opening 6 games, the Saints games have sailed over 37 points in 5 out of 6, and they've done their fair share of the scoring towards that total. Their game total average is 52 points per game, so that's clearly way higher than the 37. We have to add a side note onto this one. Derek Carr is once again injured for this game, so he's sidelined, he's not active. But Spencer Rattler is quarterback 1 in this game, as he was last week, and he actually played a really nice game in his debut last week. So the Saints' offense should still be able to put up some points in this game. I think he threw for 20. I think it was 29 points they had altogether last week. Something around the number. I can't quite remember off the top of my head. But Rattler had a really nice game last week. So I'm not really concerned that he's in the game. He showed last week that he can do some bits. So as for the defense, they're dead last in total yards allowed, averaging 395 yards per game, and the bottom 10 in points allowed as well with 24. As for the Broncos, they've looked like an improved team on last year, and they're actually they were enjoying a 3-game winning streak until they took a disappointing loss to the Raiders last week. I'm pretty sure they'd have had that penciled down as a win, try and make it 4 straight. But they took the loss. The Broncos have only gone over 37 points in their games only 3 times this year, but they themselves have been averaging 18 points per game. The defense is allowing the 4th lowest 16 points per game on average, so they're very, very good defense. I expect this game to get very close, but I do expect both teams to be able to put up points on one another as they battle it out for the win. So there's not really some solid prediction and statistics to back this one. It's kind of a gut feeling which I'm acting upon, and I actually really quite like this 37, 36.5, whichever line you get. I'm really liking the over in this game, so I actually do think both teams can easily score around 20 points themselves, and if they're going off each team's averages, that this game should in theory sail over 36.5. So we're going to go 1 unit play on Broncos and Saints over 36.5, but we're not finished. So to add to this, I just mentioned how the Broncos are looking a lot better than last year, and I think that is down to the addition of Bo Nix in the draft. Now, I'm not saying that Bo Nix is seriously above Russ Wilson, but he's settled into this offense really nicely, and the 3-3 record would suggest that too. Considering he's a rookie quarterback, they didn't do too well last year. I don't think many teams would have expected him to have a 3-game winning streak at any point during the season. So in those 3 losses, the Broncos have been within 1 score. So again, Bo Nix has been a key part of that. He's kept them in the game, even in the losses. And even if they don't win in this game, I expect him to be able to do the same. Bo Nix, he's averaging 180 passing yards on the season. That new number is deflated slightly due to that terrible game against the Jets. That saw him throw only 60 total yards. But if you take out that game and put that down as an anomaly, he's averaging 204 passing yards per game. So a number which he's surpassed 4 times in his first 6 games. As I said, one of those times he went under 200 yards was the 60-yard game against the Jets. The second time was his first NFL start, a game which you could argue that was filled with nerves. First NFL game, he's going to be nervous, so I'm going to take that one with a pinch of salt. The Bo Nix passing yard line for this game has been set at 88.5, and I saw this, and again, I automatically liked it, so I looked into it further. As I mentioned, he's been fairly consistent, throwing over 200 yards. He'll face the Saints defense that allows the most total yardage per game in the NFL, and that is again with 395. But more specifically, they allow the 4th most passing yards on average to an opposing team, averaging 262. That's obviously well over the Bo Nix line, and he looks very comfortable with the ball. He looks comfortable in his offense, especially in recent weeks. The Broncos searching for their 4th win in this game. I expect Bo Nix to be a huge part of the Broncos scoring points. Now, I mentioned his line is at 188.5, but I'm actually going to take a shot on this one, and I'm going to hope he throws for over 200 at plus money. I mentioned he's consistently thrown over 200 yards, 4 games out of 6. So, he's facing a bottom 5 passing defense. He's done this fairly regularly anyway, so I'm going to go 1 unit. Bo Nix over 199.5 passing yards, and that's at odds of 2.20. So you're getting plus 120 for Bo Nix, 200 yards. So again, that is me done for this episode. I'll go through again. Obviously, the over in this game, Saints and Broncos over 36.5 at odds of 1.86. Bo Nix over 199.5 passing yards at 2.20 as well. So I just want to say a huge thank you to everyone that's made it this far. Appreciate everyone for listening, and he'll listen to me waffle on about NFL as I have to do on a weekly basis now. So I'm actually really enjoying myself doing these as well. So I hope you all gain some valuable information when I do these episodes. Hopefully you all tailor plays. And let's lock it in, lock and load, and let's go. I'll see you again on Friday evening for my next episode, which will be for the rest of the NFL in week 7. So Sunday Night Football, Monday Night Football. We've got 2 Monday Night Football games this week as well. So let's lock and load. Let's get it, and I'll catch you later.